Oregon, a land of adventure and awe, a treasure.
That was a great take.
Majestic and hidden. A state that calls out for exploration and experience. The journey of discovery begins now. From KGW, this is Grant's Getaways.
Some Oregon back roads reach into the distant past. If you join the right people, the past comes to life.
You have to use a little of your imagination because of all the erosion.
Imagination helps you understand the story of Bay Ocean, Oregon, a 4-mile finger of sand that defines the western edge of Tillamook Bay. But a century ago, it was a huge subdivision, coined the Atlantic City of the West. It boasted homes, cabins, restaurants, stores, even a centerpiece hotel, and an indoor heated pool. Harold Bennett and Perry Reeder were boys who still remember paved streets, sidewalks, and storefronts.
Famous sign, "Watch Bay Ocean Grow." And it was there until the time that they burned the building down, bulldozed it down.
Mother Nature had other plans for Bay Ocean. You see, between 1932 and 1950, the ocean cut a mile-long swath across the spit and the town site.
Buildings were falling down and the houses going into the ocean and people having to move out, and it was just sad.
Barbara Bennett watched as homes slid down eroding sand dunes, and people lost their lots, their houses, and their money as Bay Ocean slipped away.
It's been called the town that fell into the sea.
Yeah, well, I think it did.
It's really amazing how well the people took it. If it happened today, there'd be lawsuits everywhere. But those people stand out in my mind. They took it so well.
Some homes were saved from ruin when they were moved in the nick of time, like this one, nicknamed the Pagoda House for its distinct style.
It was falling off. They had to pull it down through a sand area on some tractors until they could get it onto a truck.
Jerry Sutherland is a history buff who is fascinated by the Bay Ocean saga. He says 5 homes and the Bay Ocean School were moved to the nearby village of Cape Mears.
It's nature against man. Man not understanding nature and nature not caring very much, just doing what it's going to do.
So the natatorium was where?
Right out there.
Straight?
Straight out.
Back on the spit, Perry Reeder holds on to local heritage with handmade markers that show where the roads ran and the stores and hotels stood. Both are proud to have been a part of a community that was once a vacation destination and is still open for exploration, on foot or on a bike. Nehalem Falls does so in a 20-yard stretch. If you bring patience with your camera,
Oh, I got that one.
you'll earn a reward.
So this is the first freshet. So all the fish that's been sitting in the bay all these time, they're on the move now. This is an awesome week. This is the first major obstacle for them. And so they got to practice.
Husky salmon have muscled their way back from salty sea to find their birth home just in time to spawn. The churning drop gives salmon little choice but a gang-up approach to leap for their lives, a fine place to capture a memory.
Those are fun. You don't get any better than this.
Many Oregon streams, like Eagle Creek in the Columbia River Gorge, bear out what the calendar says. Summer has passed, and now it is fall.
You see it? It's moving to the right.
The Salmon River near Welch's, Oregon offers a fine spot for a salmon watch too.
Yeah. I see it.
Chinook salmon are hard to miss. Mottled black and gray, they started life right here 4 years ago. It's a lesson not lost on Kirk Ordway's 6th grade class.
I've been fortunate enough to do this program for the last 4 years, and it's huge.
1,200 students ranging from middle school through high school.
Pretty amazing journey these guys go through.
Will experience a salmon watch this fall, thanks to the not-for-profit Portland-based World Salmon Council. Ordway's watch actually began in his science class at Mount Tabor Middle School last month.
Is it a stonefly?
The Salmon Watch program provides the curriculum and even the supplies. And they cover the cost of a field trip and even pay for a substitute teacher, so Ordway can join his class.
Do the salmon like hot water?
No, they don't.
Out in the field, volunteer teachers like Janet Davis guide the newcomers with scientific methods.
Not yet.
To be able to think systematically, not just sort of, oh, I was told this and somebody I like said this, therefore it must be true. You need to have a way of verifying what you hear, what you see, what's before you.
Salmon are so deeply characteristic of our region, and yet kids are growing up these days not knowing that we live so close to these magnificent streams that see these salmon swim on through every season.
Students insist that a day here, streamside, observing and learning, takes hold in a way that the classroom can't.
All this stuff is just really cool to actually see it, and actually being there, seeing it in the water, in clear water, great water, it helps, because it actually makes me think differently about fish. They're really cool.
How often can you go around the city and see salmon running up into a stream? You can't. So to be able to come out in an old-growth forest and then to witness nature in its life cycle, you can't beat that.
October sunrise on the Jewel Wildlife Area. It's cool, crisp, and quiet. But not for long.
The majority of the bugling that you're hearing out here during the rut is the mature bulls, because those are the ones that are dominant. They try to run the other smaller bulls off.
Bull elk bugling is unlike any trumpet or trombone you've ever heard.
They bugle at one another, they challenge one another, and then they kind of pace side by side.
Signs that the rut, or breeding season, has arrived, and the battles have just begun.
And then all of a sudden, they will turn and they will commence to lock their antlers and push on one another. They mean business until one of them finally gives up.
Not a fight to the death, but a pushing match that determines strength and virility.
This is an alder tree where elk have been rubbing on.
Bull elk grow antlers up to 5 feet high, with a tip-to-tip spread that's even wider. As hormones rise, the bulls become more aggressive, and alder tree rubs are common.
Helps establish their dominance. If there's other bulls around and they're just scraping and they say, I'm meaner than you, and you need to stay away from me.
You don't want to stay away from Jewel this time of year, but keep in mind that Jewel is but one of 3 elk watch sites that provide amazing moments in the wild. Each December, Wildlife Area Manager Ed Maguez travels 150 miles a day to reach 10 feeding sites on the 12,000-acre Elkhorn Wildlife Area. It sprawls across Union and Baker counties. The Elkhorn Winter Feeding Program started in '71 to keep hungry Rocky Mountain elk up here in the forest, rather than ranch lands on the valley floor.
We don't miss a day.
Most of the Elkhorn Wildlife Area is closed in winter, but the Anthony Creek site stays open, so visitors can stand by a warming fire and enjoy the show. There's one more show that should not be missed on this statewide elk watch: the Dancing Antlers at Dean Creek Refuge along Highway 38, 3 miles east of Reedsport. They are guaranteed to stop you in your tracks. Back at Jewel Wildlife Area, biologist Bryan Swearingen says, bring patience when you come, and don't be afraid to linger longer, even after sunset.
Because you can hear the antlers clashing, and you can hear some bulls bugling, and you can hear some of the calves and the cows sort of talking, so it's still a good experience.
This winter, make time to travel east for an easy-to-find and unique wildlife experience along the Deschutes River. And please, don't forget a camera.
You see bald eagles and golden eagles in their daily routine.
It's an age-old predator-prey game amid timeless rimrock country at Lake Billy Chinook near Madras, Oregon.
You never know what's going to be going on at one of the viewpoints or at the Overlook Park.
A place where 3 rivers called Metolius, Crooked, and Deschutes merge into a 7-mile-long watery playground. Long a drawing card for eagles.
These big escarpments that you see, you don't see those everywhere. And they like a certain steepness, and then they got to have some flat ledges on it, because you'll see some of them that are literally sheer. They have to have a little bit of a place to start a nest, but it is special.
Less than an hour down the Deschutes River, explore a direct route to Solitude on a gentle road that winds for more than 40 miles. The lower Deschutes backcountry byway is surrounded by canyon walls that tower above lonesome boaters who own the river this time of year. Many of the columnar basalt cliffs reach hundreds of feet high.
He probably went back and bedded against the cliff.
It's where wildlife biologist Jeremy Thompson watches for movement among the rocks.
In the sun, they kind of shine yellow. I've heard them described as bananas, looking for bananas on the hill. But the curve of that horn and the color of it really stands out.
The Deschutes River byway hides bighorns, and it takes a keen eye to pick out the wild sheep that blend with the background. Females, called ewes, gather in small herds.
They're pretty gregarious. They like to hang out together throughout the entirety of the year. So you'll find little groups like that. You know, there'll be 10 to 12 generally throughout the summer and the fall.
The males, called rams, are more solitary.
Once a ram gets over a year and a half old, I mean, his horns are well bigger than what a ewe's will be. So you'll start to see horns that curve way back and much bigger at the base than what you'd see on the females.
The Deschutes bighorns are inspiring. Not only their dramatic stature against an otherwise drab background of rock and sage, but the fact they are even here. You see, overhunting and disease led to extinction of Oregon's bighorn sheep in the 1940s. But restoration projects began in 1954, when 20 sheep were relocated from British Columbia to the Heart Mountain National Antelope Refuge in Lake County. Other states also contributed to Oregon's sheep recovery efforts through the 1980s. By the 90s, Oregon's population was strong enough to support in-state capture and transplant. Back on the byway with Jeremy Thompson, he says if you wish to come and see the bighorns, dress warm, don't forget binoculars, and most of all, bring
patience. A lot of people will stop and look and not see them and move on. You know, if you just sit down and watch and look at some of these bigger cliff complexes, eventually they'll be surprised. There'll be sheep in them and they just haven't been able to see them.
The bighorns now number nearly 5,000 in more than 40 sites across eastern Oregon. It's a special program blending human technology with a commitment to restore a species. I call the mile-long trail to Waklilla Falls a back pocket hike because it's handy and easy to reach, just a stone's throw from Bonneville Dam in the Columbia River Gorge. Tanner Creek lures you along a gentle trail that has about 300 feet of elevation gain. There are foamy sheets of water that drain across canyon rocks. They are a delight to stop and enjoy before Waklele explodes into view with deafening style.
It's protected for its scenic resources. It's so astoundingly beautiful. It's also pretty easy to get to.
Named for an ancient Chinook Indian village site, Waklele falls in two tiers, dropping 50 and 80 feet respectively out of a narrow gorge before plunging into a large pool at the head of a massive basalt amphitheater. A fine place to enjoy a picnic while the rushing water flushes away all the daily stress. Near Mosier, there's another hike that's well off the beaten path. Stroll the Memaloose Hills on a wildflower hike that can take you up to 6 miles and an 800-foot elevation gain. The trail is jam-packed with flowers right now, including stunning balsam root, glacier lily, prairie star, and shooting star. This public landscape is open anytime, thanks to the efforts of a true Columbia Gorge patriot, Nancy Russell, who founded Friends of the Columbia Gorge over 30 years ago. She is the reason the Memaloose Hills are yours to explore as a part of the Columbia River Gorge National Scenic Area.
She would do anything to protect the gorge. It's like a mother with her children. She was fierce and protective, and she cared quite a bit about this area. She really was a very big advocate of the public's right to really enjoy special places like this.
And this is just getting started. The peak of the wildflower bloom is still weeks away.
You have those bright, beautiful balsam root, and then you have some red interspersed there from the paintbrush. And then if you get the right time, you get the lupin, which are purple with the yellow. It's just an explosion of color up there. It's gorgeous. It really is.
So hurry here, soon, then slow down and enjoy one of the most beautiful places in the country. On a day too nice to stay indoors, the trail to outdoor learning is open wide.
These are buttercups. That one is delphinium. Common name is larkspur.
A chance to explore an Oregon wonder that many have missed, where shooting stars, fawn lilies, and red bells are always by your side.
A gorgeous plant. We're always kind of watching over them and admiring them whenever we can see them.
There's plenty of elbow room for brushing up on botany and wildlife, like wild turkeys. The Nature Conservancy's Molly Morrison,
Erythronium hendersonii, Henderson's fawn lily,
and the BLM's Molly Allen are teachers who guide newcomers, Melissa Clement, Mary Sue Walker, and Kelly Godin. These 3 women will soon teach groups of school children along the 2-mile trail to the top of Lower Table Rock near Medford.
This is just a really good vantage point because you can see the gently sloping sides where all that softer sediment is being eroded. So it's this really unique landform that's really different than anything else around.
7 million years ago, a nearby volcano erupted and lava filled the entire Rogue River Valley. Over the millennia, ancient rivers have eroded the land and left these 2 plateaus behind. Each rises nearly 1,000 feet from the valley floor. Both table rocks are protected by BLM and Nature Conservancy as areas of critical environmental concern.
That designation means that it can't be developed. There can't be resource extraction, logging, mining, those kind of things up here because of the special plants and animals that live up here.
Up here, the plateau, wrapped by ancient basalt, offers eye-popping views. While down on the ground, you can hike to scores of vernal pools that fill with spring rain.
These pools are just like these fascinating aquariums. They're full of small invertebrates, including probably one of the stars of the show, the fairy shrimp. Some really beautiful and amazing plants, including the dwarf woolly meadow foam that only grows on top of the table rocks and nowhere else in the whole wide world. They're islands in the sky. They are iconic for this area.
This is Oregon.
They're landmarks of natural and cultural history, dearly loved by Valley residents and people from out of town too.
Travis Oya says with a chuckle, lift your feet when motoring across fast-ebbing tide at Netarts Bay, 'cause it gets really shallow in a hurry. Oya is an oyster farmer, and he inspects his crops daily, millions of Pacific oysters.
There's several more million on the ground on that side.
But there's another oyster he really wants to see do well.
This is a cluster of Olympia oysters, probably about 4 years old.
Olympias, or Olies for short, are Oregon's only native oyster. Once thought extinct, the silver dollar-sized shellfish are making a comeback.
It's really good. I like that.
Yeah?
It's briny as heck.
Yeah, well, I think that's characteristic of Netarts Bay. I was interested in it thinking that this was going to be some sort of sustainable crop where I wasn't going to have to plant it every year. I get a little pocket of them going, they're going to spawn every year, and then I can just kind of work off the patch that they build.
For the past decade, Oya and Nature Conservancy's Dick Vanderschaff have teamed up to bring the Olies back.
They were harvested very heavily at the turn of the century. I mean, the oyster industry was really the Olympia oyster industry.
He's right. Oregon's Olies were shipped to California and back east by hundreds of thousands in the late 1800s. By the 1920s, Olies had all but disappeared.
And so to restore the population back here in Netarts, we went and located those few adult oysters we could find, and then we set those seed on shell and brought that shell back out to the bay.
The effort caught the attention of the Travel Oregon Forever Fund. They have provided financial support to save the species.
And they saw this as a very interesting story of what's happening here in this bay and the fact that this oyster is beginning to start showing up on tables.
Dan and Louie's Oyster Bar has been a Portland restaurant fixture since 1907. Fourth-generation owner Keone Walksmith and his wife Michelle run the family business on a century-old theme, excellent seafood at a reasonable price. And these days, that means oysters from Netarts Bay, like the giant Pacific oyster Keone calls a sea monster.
Because they're so much monsters.
Dan and Louie's is also one of a handful of seafood businesses offering the Olympias. Here they're served oysters Rockefeller style, and they are out of this world delicious.
It's got a lot of flavor packed into that one little guy.
A lot of people come here for our coast. I think it's one of our state's strongest assets. I think they also come here for our food. It's our responsibility as, Travel Oregon to ensure that these assets remain available to folks for years and also generations to come.
Back on Netarts Bay, Oya and Vanderschaff agree Olies are back is not only good business, but connects Oregonians with a past worth saving.
It'd be really neat to see these guys get established and kind of repopulate on their own.
They're quite a little bite, and their size makes them just delectable.
When it comes to catching trout, it's hard to beat the bite at Whiskey Creek Hatchery.
See any smiles around here?
They're easy to find at Oregon's only all-volunteer hatchery.
It really is special. Just look at it. It's incredible.
A special day for special needs kids who rarely get a chance to catch fish.
What does it feel like when you get that fish on?
Fun.
Its annual capstone event for the Tillamook Anglers Association. Scores of members lend a hand so kids can catch trout. The fish are donated by the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. The volunteers even clean and bag the fish on ice. The payback? That's easy to see.
Oh, the kids, the laughter, they have so much fun.
Take a look at the smile on the kids' face and you'll understand. They're just so grateful. And makes me feel very warm in my heart to do this.
It's the 24th year of a special day for special kids. But this is only part of the Tillamook Angler story. The 800-member group is all about community service. For example, each October, members cut up surplus hatchery salmon, bag the fillets, seal them for the freezer, and deliver thousands of pounds to the local Oregon Food Bank.
The fish basically is the only kind of protein they get in this time of year.
Does it make a difference?
Yes, it does. A large difference.
Just a good feeling.
Back on the banks of Netarts Bay, the kids are having a ball. Kimmy Knox says she and her son Andrew look forward to the event each year.
It just gives
them a sense of accomplishment because they're like throwing a fishing rod in and they're pulling fish out, and that's very exciting to them, whereas if they were out on the river, you never know if that would happen. And there's a lot of kids here like them, so it's very relatable for them.
But don't leave before lunch. I'm sure you've heard about that.
That's a big one.
You better get in line early.
Chicken, burgers, dogs, and all the trimmings. Tillamook anglers like Joe Van Meter call their effort a privilege.
You got to give something back. You can't just take. We enjoy it.
We try to contact as many hospitals, group homes, individuals as we can. It's growing. Every year it gets bigger, and you'll see a lot of these kids, you won't notice the challenge because it's cancer. This might be the only time some of these kids will ever catch a fish. The squeals, the laughter, the hugs you get out here, it's unreal.
Oh, it's real, all right. A gift from fishermen who know it isn't the size of the catch that matters most, but the memories you make along the way. At Netarts Bay with photographer Jeff Kastner, Grant McOmie, KGW.